we'll see what these players are going to pick up and what that meta is going to be as we go into Game 2, Lobby B.
That's right. Starting off with a view of Liltop, who has elected to go with the tier start. So maybe angling AP. We'll see what the game decides to give him.
Yeah, even off the tier start, you could opt to go into the Seraphine Graves. That's one of those comps that the itemization is so varied. You can start stacking Seraphine, you can start stacking Graves. It's just about what items you happen to get. But because that comp has a big flexibility in what items you want to build by the end of it, Liltop gets a BF sword here. You could slam a Spear of Shojin if you have an AP opener, or if you have an AD opener, you could save this BF for an AD item. You have a lot of flexibility in how you play around the items if you're going towards stats build specifically.
Yeah, as you can see, Electric Overlord, our Mirage trait for this time, and we've been told that Namzi is Mage, so I feel like we haven't seen a whole lot of people go for the Mage Namzi comp this weekend, at least not in the games I've seen. But it is an option if people decide to go with it.
Yeah, I'm just looking at some stats, and Namzi was played in 12 games yesterday. It only top 4'd in 4 of them for a 33% top 4 rate, so players not quite having success with it, but it is a comp that has been doing very well on ladder. And with that small of a sample size, I'm not going to make any judgments quite yet. I think there's still a good amount of potential for that comp to succeed if someone does decide to go for it.
It's one of those comps where it's hard to get it online, you know, it's hard to start to stabilize with that, especially in a professional setting like this where there's always so much pressure in all of these lobbies that you can take a lot of extra damage. And look at that, Rengar and Olaf early on. Rengar gets sold right away, much to the sorrow of Jirachi, but we'll check out these
Rengar.
augments.
These augments are a little bit awkward. Yeah, just gonna opt for a reroll. These You really just got 3 kind of awkward choices and then rerolled into 3 not particularly better choices. You could go for like a Evoker Crest and get the Zyra out of it. You go like 3 Evoker. The Jewel to Lotus
Lotus.
It's not bad. It's just not great. It is a decent boost in damage, but I think people do kind of overestimate how much damage it actually is when you're not building crit items. So it's not ideal, but it is kind of the best of not a great augment selection here.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't think it's fantastic, but if you are starting to lean more in an AP angle too, at least that's like a little bit extra damage to add on later. But yeah, a little bit of a BG, especially with the roll being gone too. But hey, you never know what happens. Going up against Kurumx here. He's got some Lagoon going early, found the Zac, so was able to put 3 of those together. And I like the extra bruiser with the Jax too.
Yeah,
the Jax as well, not a Jax 2. You know what
Jax 2 is an excellent early game frontline, but even on the Jax 1, it just buys so much time. I remember going back to like set 4, which is, I believe, the last time we had this iteration of Jax. It's just an early game monster. It buys so much time. It's so tanky with the auto attack dodging mechanics. So it's great frontline if you hit early game, especially paired with other bruisers. You happen to hit 4 bruiser, then that Jax just does not die. And in Kurum's setup where he's level 4 with the Lagoons, Jax just pairs perfectly with that, just boosting that frontline that much extra to buy time for the Lagoons to get their stacks going.
Totally. Meanwhile, we're checking out Robin here. He's got the Morellas on the Kaisa, so strong start. If you can get maybe an mana item there, maybe 2-star, a couple things. Could lead to a decent early game. At the moment, might be a little bit more on the weak side. Astral over on the side of Clear. Just trying to get some econ rolling early on.
Ooh, I think I know what Clear's up to. This is a Clear special. This man, at one point in set 7, was just slamming Varus basically every game. I think he's going back to that with the Swift Shot emblem. He has the Astrals going already. He's got 2 Varuses. He got 1 on the bench. Got an Ezreal 2 just hanging out. I think that man's going Varus. I think he's going back to the roots just a little bit.
What do you think about the viability of that right now?
I played the game right before this broadcast and got 4th. So
okay,
one game sample size. Yeah, that sounds about right. Huge.
Yeah, I mean, it's the thing that people don't think about in the competitive setting sometimes is that there's a lot of comps that if you pilot them well, if the stars align, you can top 4 with them in this setting. Something to keep in mind on ladder, I suppose, too, right? Where there are a lot of kind of like fringe cases where if you know what you're doing, if you see the opportunity, you can maybe take something uncontested like that. Wouldn't mind seeing it. I feel like we see a couple instances of that kind of thing every day in a tournament. Oh, wow. Endless Winter, though, for Cambulee on the other side. That's going to be a pretty good item as the game goes on. Certainly the best thing you can pull out of an Orin thing, I feel like.
Yeah, Eternal Winter gets quite a bit of value early game. It's also, if you have a solo frontliner with Gargoyle Stoneplate, you get so much value out of this item. Portable Forge in general also, just, it's an item plus basically with how powerful that item is, so it's just such a big boost of power in the early game. Something else I'm keeping an eye on is how many Astrals, how many Lagoons we've got in the lobby, just how many people are stacking the Econ early, and it does feel so far like most of the lobby has Lagoons and Astrals, which I think really points towards what the meta is like right now in the early game, with people just really trying to focus on the Econ.
Yeah, it's interesting when you kind of think about how that affects streaking, right? How do you balance playing an econ trait like that versus, you know, loss streaking versus win streaking? Judging board size is a little bit tricky when everyone's kind of playing that econ composition angle in the early game. How do you usually approach that? I'm curious. 3 Lagoon players and 3 Astral players, by the way, is the official count.
Okay, it depends. Sometimes you have the room to play the Astrals or Lagoons yourself, but usually you're definitely trying to find a really strong board in this super like econ heavy lobby. And also when players are econing that hard, they do tend to be weaker when they're playing the econ traits. So you can take advantage of that. If you just build a strong board that doesn't revolve around econ traits, you can get a free 100 HP streak sometimes, even with a board that a different non-econ trait lobby would be not going for that 5 streak. And so we can see another option. Cambulee just has the econ trait but has a ton of upgrades, so he's just the strong version of the econ trait, just either being the stronger version or just not playing the econ trait and trying to find a strong board is kind of how I think players want to approach these econ trait heavy lobbies.
Right. I'm kind of wondering about the Zyra too, just chilling in the shop there. He does have the Silas,
it's a bait.
So
it's 100% a bait.
You think it's a bait? Okay.
It's too expensive, and you don't have items for it. If you
Fair
had,
enough. Yeah.
If you had Rageblade at this point, I'd probably buy the Zyra in a heartbeat. But you have Infinity Edge Last Whisper. That's not going to be Zyra items right there. So
yeah.
It's a bait.
Well, Cambulee agrees. All right, there's a Swain, but he speaking of bait, I don't think I've seen Swain get picked once for a long time.
Oh,
robivanenob there has the early Zephyr. So something to think about positioning wise as you go throughout the game. Right now sitting on Dragonmancer. Maybe thinking kind of pretty open right now. I mean, doesn't have a lot of components to really think about as far as damage direction for this comp. Pretty open.
That's a very interesting slam, but at the same time, after the Sunfire slam, like how much better items can you get out of a belt and a cloak? I assume he was just forced to take one or the other off of Carousel because I assume he doesn't want to take a 1 gold unit off that second Carousel. So you just build the Zephyr. You just start slamming items. It's not an amazing early game slam, but it is a slam, and it's going to help him carry this 100 streak into Kurumx, beat casparwu, be the sole 100 streaker in the lobby. That's just how you play the game sometimes. Sometimes you just slam items, you be aggressive as possible.
Yeah, I mean, you would know a little bit about that. I think one of the most interesting TFT games I've ever seen was you getting a ton of defensive items and just playing very creatively around those and doing very well.
Oh my god, I forgot about this. I know we've talked about this game off broadcast, but I haven't gotten a chance to talk to you about this game on broadcast yet.
I feel like that was one of your breakout games.
I think it was. Yeah, it was set 4 regionals, I believe, day 1. My first game, I won. I got first place with Morgana 3 and Talon Morgana, and then that game where I was stuck with belts, tears, and cloaks.
Yeah.
And was just slamming every item possible and somehow got a second, and I remember you casting that.
Yeah, it was very cool.
This is wild.
It was a neat game because it was such a good example of exactly what we're seeing from robivanenob in this game, where when you have those items that are fairly awkward, you do things like he's doing. You know, you slam the Sunfire Cape, you put that on a Nasus, right? That and a Nasus 2 is a very strong thing early. And then you build the Zephyr, and if you're, you know, aware of your positioning, you can very easily shut down an entire team's damage at this point in the game, you know, because nobody's really watching for Zephyrs. I mean, at this level, they're probably doing a little bit more, but not that much, right? So, yeah, I feel like it's another good example of taking that type of item start and leveraging it into a strong early and mid game.
Yeah, paying off for him. For Clear, in the meantime, hits the Varus 2, has the last Whisper going on it already. There is a world he doesn't stick with the Varus, although knowing Clear, there is a solid chance he does. There's a world he just ends up going into Xayah anyway, just has the Swift Shot Crest and is going to use Varus to get there. He is probably going to be contested by robivanenob, who did take Scorch as his first augment, so pretty much locking himself into Xayah right there. So probably going to have 2 Xayah players in the top 2 spots in this lobby right now.
Sounds like pretty much every ladder game I play right now.
Yeah, pretty much.
Which is maybe not. Maybe after this weekend it'll be a little bit different. Maybe after this weekend we'll see even more priority on the Seraphine Graves kind of stuff.
It was already getting a lot more popular on ladder. I feel like every game now I'm seeing like 2 to 3 of that comp. I expect we're gonna now see 3 to 4 of that comp every game. So we'll see. When the comp is strong, people tend to play it. That's just how it goes.
It makes it annoying for Lagoon Mage players like me, because I'm like, I just want a Seraphine to get 6 Lagoon. That's all. That's I don't need a Seraphine 3. Just let me have 1.
Just what? May I have a crumb, please?
May I have a Lagoon Evoker Mystic, please?
Yes.
But Clear, yeah, I'm curious to see how long he's gonna stick with this, because there's no reason to really change right now.
Yeah, this is his strongest board at the moment. I think level 7 is going to be really pivotal. How far he rolls down. If he really wants to play Xayah, he's really going to want to go level 8. The thing is, in this lobby, I don't think he's necessarily going to be able to greed that much. So at that point, when you're rolling on level 7, it might just be the Varus angle as you're out. So you can play around capping out your board on those lower levels around Varus 3 rather than having to just go level 8, pray for Xayah, pray for a Shyvana angle.
I feel like that second wind just came in very handy for casparwu. The front line was looking a little bit sketchy, and then the augment heal came in, and that put him right back where he needed to be to win this one.
Yeah, people's opinions on second wind have been very all over the place. I remember when set 6 first came out, Mortdog just straight up said, second wind is bad. Do not take second wind. And Ramblin' at some point was like, well, if you're playing Lulu, second wind is actually really good just because of like timing and the timing of Lulu ult. And then we cycle around and the fights have gotten so long that second wind is good. So
yeah, I
very
think so
interesting
too.
Life cycle of the augment, and I do agree. I think second wind is a really solid option right now for a lot of the really tanky comps we're seeing this set.
I like that. That's one of the things I like about augments in the 2 sets we've had them now, is that different augments are good in different metas based on the average length of time a round takes, which is kind of a cool thing to think about while you're playing a game of TFT. So I like that.
Yeah. There's also a reason Ascension had to get nerfed just straight up from silver to gold tier.
Yeah.
just off of, oh, the fights are so long and Ascension is getting too much value.
Thank Mr. Urgot. Yeah.
Urgot.
Don't never forget. Checking out robivanenob, he's doing a little bit of looking around the lobby right now. One thing I noticed as well, both it seemed like Kurumx and I think Rainplosion both took Tiny Titans.
Yes, they did both take that. I did notice that as well. Kurum I believe, has been on 110 HP for a little bit, so he's still win streaking with that. And as we get the augments over on the left side, we do get that confirmation that yes, Kurum and Rainplosion have taken that. No real interesting augments coming out, just across the board, very generic. The most interesting you could say is Robin taking cybernetic uplink. But considering we saw earlier he had Lagoon, he had the Morello on the Kaisa, the uplink just makes sense for him. So nothing too spicy from the augments this time.
Yep, I have to kind of wait for that third one. See what pops up. A couple Band of Thieves we saw there as well. Right before the cast, I had a double prismatic game. That was pretty wild. That's always a fun one. But Liquid Robin, has fallen all the way down to 8th right now. Trying to put together this Lagoon board. Has one tier, but hasn't been able to get a mana item online. That Kaisa 2, it's even a little bit late, I think, for the Kaisa 2 to make a big difference. But,
Yeah.
I have to see, wow, 10
Oof.
gold, level 7. Things are looking real rough for Robin right now.
This spot looks pretty sketch.
Yeah.
Robin was really hoping for just really trying to find the Soam on this level. He's 8 loss streak, 48 HP. You really need not necessarily a bailout, but just something strong. How strong? This Kaisa 2 is actually decently strong, especially on level 7. Like, Robin's board isn't bad. I just question whether it's good enough to bring him out from this spot where he is so far behind.
Yeah, just no mana item on the Kaisa means these casts are coming so slow. It means she's not getting powered up as quickly. Looks like it might be enough. Oh, barely enough to take down clear that round. But when he didn't put the tier on the Kaisa, I'm like, I don't know, man. Your HP's getting a little bit low. You gotta do something. But no, he knew.
Yeah.
Sire 2, that's a nice hit for him. casparwu though, going for the
Oh,
Seraphine.
look. Hey,
Yep.
look. We've seen this before. And
A couple times.
yeah, just a few times. Just four. Sorry. Only 3 first places with Seraphine Graves over in game 1. It was 4 Graves first places, but only 3 Seraphines.
Only.
Only 3 out of 4.
Having a Graves at 3/6 feels pretty good too. If you're casparwu, even that Graves 1 should be able to do a fair amount of damage.
Even without the items, the Seraphine just enables everyone in this comp to do so much damage. And we have Wolves coming up. It is only 3/6. Casper will be hopefully able to find some items for this Graves. If not, he has so many options for items he can go for. I touched on earlier how much item flexibility you have in this comp. You have an AP carry in Seraphine. You have the AD carry with Graves. You have Pantheon and Zac that you put your frontline items on. There's no such thing as a bad item in this comp. So as long as Casper gets items here, he should be good to go.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I have not played a single game of that yet, if I'm going to be honest. And especially now that like so many people are doing it every lobby, that just makes me not want to play it even more. But it does remind me a lot. We were talking about this yesterday of the old Keepers build, you know? Focus around a cannon, you just make that big sort of like Diamond of Doom on the board, and they're fun. Those are fun comps to play. If you're new to TFT, probably a good one to learn.
Yeah, there is something to be said about the complete lack of flexibility in the comp. It is basically the same 7 units you're playing every single time, which a lot of players, Mortdog included, kind of doesn't like those comps where it's just the same game plan for the same units every single game. But I do kind of agree with your point of like, hey, it's give the newer players some help, because people have to be introduced to this game somehow, and if they're focusing on all the units, it becomes a lot harder. So we just slim it down to 7.
I actually think it's vital for the health of TFT to have comps like that every set, because
I would agree.
Not
too many.
No, not too many, but you need at least one where it's like it's the same way every game. You can just look for the units you know work, and like only focusing on one comp when you're a new player actually teaches you a lot of other comps, because you'll become keenly aware of what different compositions can do against yours, which makes you kind of notice what they do well. So really, even if you only spam one comp as a new player, you're still learning about the whole meta, you know? So I think it's good to have a comp like that. I mean, definitely a lot more conversation to be had about how healthy it is for a professional situation like this, but for the casual, for the new player, I think it's good.
I'm not to lump myself in with casuals right now, but I have a lot of thoughts on those kinds of comps and like one tricking, but that is off broadcast. I could spend the literal rest of this game talking about that.
I hear you. You talk about AP one tricking all day, but check this out: as Zoe gets found by Rainplosion early on. Oh, there's a Namzi too. That's a nice hit. We talked about the possibility of being able to play the mage Namzi, since that is the option this game, and 7 mage for Rainplosion. And here's where things do start to get pretty dangerous. The only kind of issue here is that there aren't really any items on the Namzi yet, so that will reduce the damage. But when you get to 7 mages, you're going to be doing a lot either way.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of damage coming out. I just worry how many casts this Namzi is going to get off. There's the Zeke's Herald helps give that little boost of attack speed. You have the Chalice to make sure that Namzi will be doing damage. There's just no items on the Namzi yet, and every time I've played Namzi and just not had items, it just feels like this unit doesn't do enough damage. And with this 7 mage board, the 7 mage board isn't that tanky. Like, the unit quality isn't amazing, but it doesn't matter when you have a Zoe laser blowing up the whole board. So Rainplosion able to take this fight win over Cambulee pretty convincingly.
The 4% roll on the Zoe was pretty huge for Rainplosion to stay in this one. Are you a little bit surprised that the Zizrat portal isn't getting slammed here?
Not necessarily. I think Rain has recognized that she can't really go for a full damage Namzi with the items she has, so she's just content to put the Morello on it, use the Namzi as some good supplemental damage to just everything going on the board, but use that unit as a Morello spreader, similar to like sometimes in Lagoon, you just give a blue buff and a Morello to Soam and use that to kind of spread the burn around the board and just let the rest of the board be your real damage.
Yeah. Kurumx playing with a board that does a good job of taking advantage of the frontline power you can have sometimes in the middle of this Lagoon Mage sort of plan, where you can go to Guardian if you find like a Braum, make use of the Zac a little bit better, and just have a really strong frontline. That said, that doesn't mean a Namzi isn't going to absolutely annihilate you in the back line, but at least your frontline lives for a while.
Yeah,
it's not the greatest example of my point, but
even without any real damage items on the Namzi besides this Morellonomicon, she still blew up the back line. Zoe still exists, and the 7 mage, just every mage is just doing so much damage that, and plus the AP boost you get from the 7 mage, plus it's not like the Namzi has no help whatsoever besides that Morello. There's also a Zeke's Herald and a Chalice of Power, both built by Rainplosion to supplement that, so the Namzi is still doing work even with just the one item on that unit.
Yep. Robin able to snag a tier, which is going to be helpful to get some of that mana generation online. Meanwhile, robivanenob up to first. Just looking across the right side of the board here. Now it's Cambulee, who's really kind of in a little bit of a rough spot. 34 HP going into 4-5. Let's check out casparwu though. Okay, we got another Seraphine player here. Lots of good items there. Oh, and there's the Graves too, but do you want to make the Last Whisper?
No, okay. I like what you did. You make the Hand of Justice. You really want to kill that tier. You still have the BF Sword and the Bow open for items off the Treasure Dragon. So I did like how he slammed the items. Getting the Graves off Carousel as well was crucial. He's on 0 gold. Would not have gotten this Graves too if he didn't get that unit off Caro.
Mm-hmm. All right. Going up against the lowest player in the lobby. Probably pretty good right after you hit that Graves too. The Eternal Winter.
Cambulee is pretty strong too, though. He has the Xayah too. He has pressed the attack, which is basically the best Swift Shot augment. So the Xayah is pumping out damage. He is currently on a more guild stacking version. I do not believe he has found Shyvana yet, so gonna eventually look to get towards the Rage Wings, but for now on 34 HP in a bit of a rough spot. But having the Xayah 2 this early, especially in a lobby where you are probably contested by at least Robivan, feels pretty good.
Rainplosion able to win that one in the nick of time. Just with a bit of a Namzi burst at the end. Not too bad. And not a lot has changed. I guess Giant Slayer has been the addition since the last time we saw this board. Was able to get a sword off of Carousel, and that means she was able to put the Giant Slayer on the Namzi. So a little bit more damage.
She is going for Namzi 3 as well. She is uncontested. It will be relatively easy, and she has the 4th Namzi on bench. She has 30 gold. She is in a pretty good spot to reroll here. She's also got some extra copies of the Vladimir and the Skarner just chilling on the bench. You might as well hang on to them. You're going to be getting those units from Astral anyway, and they do beef up your front line just that bit extra to buy time for Namzi. and especially once you hit Namzi 3 to absolutely one-shot boards. Even without perfect quote-unquote items, this Namzi will still do plenty of damage at 3-star.
And can the Zoe 1... Oh, here comes Daisy. This might be closer. Oh, Whispers make such a big difference here, though, too. Also, the heal, not bad. All right. If it was not Soraka, maybe there was a chance that that round could have been just barely taken, but not the case. Gonna jump over to see what Liquid Robin's got going on with the Treasure Dragon of the Chaos variety.
Very interesting. Robin ended up also back in Seraphine, but has 1 Graves on bench and is not opting to play it. He's actually opting to play currently a Hecarim 2 over that Graves. And he wasn't able to find the tiers to be able to play Soam, wasn't able to find a Soam at all, so not too surprising he ended up here. Is going to opt to take this. Yeah, you have the Jewel Gauntlet, you put down Seraphine, you have some pretty good Graves items at this point. Is able to go level 8, which is crucial as well, so...
Yeah, Zeri too, actually. Not a bad hit if you're going to put in the Graves as well, so...
His items are just so awkward, though. Like, yes, he has Cybernetic Uplink, but well, with the Cybernetic Uplink, I guess it's more understandable. But just having a Bloodthirster on the Graves 1, and that's your quote-unquote primary damage. It's not like the rest of the board won't make up for it, but just considering the rest of the lobby, I don't want to say Robin's doomed. It just looks a little bit rough.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that Neela in the backline is actually a little bit scary. From Kurum on the other side, now getting in the middle of it. But there's a good amount of damage coming through. Waiting to see how long this Graves can live. Nope, as soon as the shield is popped, that's that. Pantheon, though, still holding strong.
This Soam is putting in so much work for Kurumx. Kurum was able to pick up Jeweled Lotus as his third augment, was able to find an Infinity Edge to really boost how much damage this Soam is putting out. The blue buff and Morellonomicon as well. Great items for Kurum right now. Also has the Nyla too. Even though he's stuck on Soam 1, it's not like he's lacking damage. The Nyla... Or Neela, excuse me, we learned this yesterday. It's Neela. The Neela in the backline still doing plenty of damage, still able to clean up. The Soam and the Neela complement each other so well because the Soam like just spreads out a bunch of damage, and the Neela has such good single target and reset that she is, especially with a triple stack Neela like this, she's able to just clean up and do so much work.
That's the thing, right? I mean, like, Soam is kind of like the star, but Neela is really the one doing most of the work in some of these games. Like, she's the one that just went in there and softened up the Graves so that the Soam ult finished him off. And if you can get good items on a Neela, yeah, you should not ignore this champion if you're playing Lagoon Mage. Clear down to 5 HP. Things are looking grim. Robin, though, did get a win, so maybe... Starting to come back a little bit. Let's look at robivanenob. Was on top of the lobby for a long time. Now he's traded places with Kurum. We just saw having a very strong composition. But the 6 Rage Wing is online. It's just still that Senna. Looking around, where are the Zayas? 2 there.
Yeah, Clear did end up pivoting into Zaya. I'm looking at Robivan's board, and it looks like I haven't hit Zaya yet. That is my read on Robivan's board.
If you're gonna have that situation, though, I mean, at least it's a situation where you have the strongest board you can get, before you find the Zaya. It seems like, but we're gonna check in with Clear because this might be his last round if he can't take out casparwu on the other side. But that Graves looks pretty strong. Titan's activated. Zaya's had all day to shoot this Graves. And it still might not be enough.
Just not enough.
That's it.
Only Zaya won. I really wonder what happened to Clear there. He was looking so good. He had the early Varus too. It might have been he decided to pivot into Zaya, and everything just fell apart from there. So unfortunate to see him go out in 8th when he didn't have a great game 1 either.
Yeah. Welcome to the 5-4 carousel. Ooh, Mage spat taken by Rainplosion.
Ooh,
that could be spicy.
That's huge. Yeah. You can go ahead and put that on Zyro, and I think a lot of players agree that the mage cap one of the best holders is the Zyra. She already provides so much CC to a team and to a fight. Getting to do that twice, it does so much work. Mage Cap has always been really good on those utility champions that don't care about, on the 3 mage, that they don't care about their damage getting reduced. If they get that boost in damage, it's cool once you get to the more vertical mages, but just getting a utility cast off twice does an incredible amount of work. Absolutely.
One of my favorite targets for that, if I already have one on the Zyra, and I'm playing Lagoon, is to put on the Seraphine, because, like you're saying, that just gives you so much more utility. And damage, I suppose, to a certain extent. Meanwhile, robivanenob does find the Xayah 1, but elects to keep in the Senna 2 for the moment.
I think this is okay. When you play Xayah, you really want to also be playing the Twitch for the Swift Shot. But to do that, you probably have to drop this Idis frontline. So just for now, playing the Senna, it feels really weird, but I think it's actually correct here. Just it's a better standalone unit than Xayah, believe it or not. The Senna 2 over the Xayah 1. So, and especially when you're using it to stack Draven's Axe, I think it's better. For Rainplosion, though, 8 Nomsies. That is so unfortunate.
That is rough. It's weird to see this, because this is exactly how every single one of my Mage Nomsy games have gone this set, where I get to like 8 Nomsies and that's it. I can't find the 9th one to save my life. So I feel your pain, Rainplosion. We'll see if it's enough to take out robivanenob, but he has the Zyra 2 now. Or Xayah 2, rather. Zyra. Very similar names.
Yeah, and I feel this for Rainplosion, just being stuck in 1 off your 3, or in this case 6 cost Dragon Jail. Just not enough. I don't know if it even would have made a difference this fight, but I feel Rain's pain right now.
Yep, that's going to send her out in probably 7th, depending on what happens with Robin.
Yeah, it looks like a 7th.
Yeah,
Robin goes out
taking
in
a pretty good
6th.
hit too. Yeah, 6th for him. Yep, -7. Yeah. And so we have our top 5 at least. It's casparwu trying to fight for a top 4 here with a triple item Nexus minion. So this could get a little bit spicy.
With these items, I mean, I think you can put them on Zyra. And play like kind of budget version of the Whisper Zyra comp, at least a little bit. You just have the 2 Whispers. You get Zyra stacking with the Rage Blade, and you also just get more casts of that ability. So it might just be a put all these items on Zyra angle, honestly.
Yeah, I think I'm in agreement with you there.
Probably put the Trap Claw on like Soraka to protect the Graves, and then probably the Giant Slayer Rageblade on the Zyra. You could probably make a case for Rageblade on the Soraka as well, but no, he's gonna do these items on that Zyra. I agree with this.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I do kind of like the idea of the claw on the Soraka though, just to make sure that Graves has that little bit of extra protection. Last minute swap. Yep, there you go. Not gonna be able to make use of the claw though. Just leaves it on the bench. Okay.
Yeah, I think just realizing there's not really too much use for it right now.
Whoa.
Although there might have been use for it considering that one shot. All right,
could
then.
have maybe used it there.
Just maybe. That's a dead Casper. Okay.
Exact lethal for Casper there.
Okay, I'm calling this out. You really left resources on the bench when you were on 1 life? Come on, Casper. You know better than this.
I have a feeling he thought he could maybe survive a loss there. And if 1 more unit had died on the other side, he would have.
True.
But, you know, and I think maybe you go back and watch that round, there might be an argument for if that Trap Claw was there, if a little bit of damage was prevented, you know, maybe things would have turned out differently. Maybe Casper would still be in this game, but it is what it is. He's out in 4th, and now it's Liltop and Cambulee trying to fight it out for that 3rd spot. We're going to watch Kurumx go up against robivanenob, though. This is really the fight to see who's probably going to win this game at some point. Oh my gosh, that is a lot of damage.
Yeah, Kurumx still holding his own even on just a Sohm 1. This fight looks like a loss.
Well,
I'm not sure how a Sohm 2 changes the fight, but for Kurumx, who is already level 9, he still has ways to go with capping out his board. He can still find an upgrade to the second Neela. He has the Zoe 2 to find, has the Soam 2 to find. He has a lot of upgrades. For Robivan, his way of capping out is going to level 9. He was saving up the gold to do that. He's going to opt to throw in a third Swift Shot for now. I imagine that's just going to be a placeholder until he can find probably the Bard in order to get more guild units in. So for Cambulee is also hanging out at 5 HP, I believe, also playing Xayah, and good on him to actually get to his top 3. We were calling out earlier that he was in a bit of a rough spot down at the bottom, so good job pulling it back.
Yeah, quite the turnaround, taking minimum of 3rd here. You know, I want to see robivanenob get in get in Mystic as well. I think Mystic 2 is underrated.
Yeah, I do too. For Cambulee, though, yeah, he was facing just the better version of himself, but you take that 3rd all day. That is a solid 3rd for him.
Yeah. Now, the reason I talk about Mystic 2 is because when you get to some of these late game situations, if you have 2 boards that place each other very closely, and it looks like Kurumx just does not care what item he gets, you know, then that little extra MR, you know, can make the difference between a unit dying or barely living and getting to do a little bit more damage. But we'll see how this goes. Oh, it's a pause. Maybe we had a disconnect for Kurumx, actually. I
imagine Kurumx DC'd, also considering he's playing from a laptop at his mom's house, I believe. So
yeah.
Well,
for those of you who don't know, yeah, Kurumx is down in Florida, and there was recently a pretty large hurricane that went through the States. So that definitely does displace people, definitely does make things a little bit tricky. So that might be the situation. He's playing on a laptop. You know, no shade against laptops, but you know, they're not quite as stable as desktop PCs sometimes.
I mean,
we'll see what
shade
happens.
against laptops. There's a reason we don't generally use them for, you know, professional video games. So,
although I do know players that have gone pro in like FPSs and stuff on just like old laptops, and like sometimes when people are that good, you know, it doesn't make a difference. And Kurumx getting this far, you know, clearly the laptop was good enough to enable a epic pro gamer like himself to get to day 4 here. But we'll see what happens. It was going to be, I feel like robivanenob kind of had the edge in the 1v1 that we were about to go into. But I'd still like to see it. So hopefully we can get Kurumx back here pretty soon. But this is sort of esports. You know, I always equate it like this, where traditional sports have rain delays, they have things like that. You know, esports can have disconnects, you can have power outages, that kind of thing.
We have tech delays instead of rain delays, I guess. Something like that. Yeah.
Yep.
I think
exactly.
Also with the laptop thing, like right now, I think for Kurumx, I think it's particularly impressive that he's gotten this far. Not because he's playing on a laptop. Like, I mean, yes, I'm going to throw shade against laptops. That's not the reason. It's something I found is that having my setup and just being comfortable with my setup just helps so much. I don't have to like use brain cells getting used to like a new mouse and a new keyboard and just having what's in front of me look different. So playing on a new setup can mess with your brain like that.
Oh,
and
totally.
Kurumx is, I imagine Kurumx is just so used to his setup now that he's at his mom's. Things are just getting thrown off, especially like playing. I feel like just from the timing, his first games on that laptop were for the tournament. So big props to him for just adapting to a new setup and adapting to those circumstances and still being able to pop off so far.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume he brought his mouse along. I mean, like, he's probably not using the trackpad or anything like that, so it's okay. But we're just waiting to see right now if we can get him back or not. We don't want to do any sort of speculating. Oh, I see. We're hearing news, maybe unconfirmed, that his internet went out. So that would be not great as well. But, you know, at the end of the day, sometimes these things just happen. Like, that's like it or not. And, of course, the not is how we feel about it. We don't like it. But that's the reality of online tournaments. You know, you are at the mercy of your own equipment. You are at the mercy of your own internet service provider. And as we've seen earlier, you know, with dish sub situation, the show must go on, right? The tournament must continue. So hopefully we can get him back soon. And hopefully on the dish soap side of things, he can get some equipment that's working for him in the rest of the tournament here. But you know, like it or not, like I said, it is the reality of online tournaments. That's just kind of the world we're in right now. So hopefully we can finish this game. But if not, at the very least, you know, we would, I suppose, again, I don't want to speculate, but I would assume he would end up getting second, and then robivanenob would end up getting first. But, you know, that's just my take. We'll have to wait and see what the official ruling is from the admins here.
I just sit here and say words. I do not have an opinion. I am a faceless robot that sits here and has no idea what they're talking about. I just say words that make no sense, apparently. So
I mean, that sounds
speculate.
like you got being a caster nailed down.
Yeah, that's what being a caster is. You have no idea what you're talking about. You just say words and expect people to believe them, right?
It's like you've become
right?
Reddit for a moment or something like that. Okay. But we like to be prepared a little bit, but yeah. So we've got a minute while we figure this out. So this is one of those epic times where casters get to fill and we get to come up with things to talk about. But you know, as far as that last game goes, things, for the most part, I would say look pretty standard across the lobby as far as the compositions, as far as, you know, the augments. No big surprises, I would say, out of that lobby. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think if anything, it's just a little bit surprising as we go back in the game. Kurumx appears to have his internet back. Yay. If anything, it's a little bit surprising how badly the Graves players did this lobby, and we're back to the Xayah Sohm, which I would love to get into that more in the post-game. For now, we have the final 1v1 between Kurumx and robivanenob. Robivan at a good HP lead is win streaking, looking to have the advantage. However, Kurumx did find the Sohm 2, is still waiting on the Nyla 2, has found the Zoe 2 as well, so in a better spot to try and contest this win.
You know, the fact that the Malphite is getting Zephyred each time for Kurumx is a little bit concerning as well, because that does mean more backline access quicker for robivanenob. But I think, as we're seeing at the end of the day, it's just a stronger board. Like, I don't really see a lot that Kurumx can do to change this situation. Looking across his board, yeah, I mean,
maybe a surprise in Neela 3.
Yeah, I guess Neela 3 might be an option. Ran out of gold for that. Yeah. We can make an argument. Nah, even like a Soraka too, I don't think would really make a big difference here.
I want to say this is just a win for Robivan. Kurumx also has 2 Zephyrs he has to try and dodge. Robivan finding a Bard 2. Even with just the 2 items on Xayah, the Deathblade Runans, still a very strong board. Kurumx on his last legs here.
Yep. One of the Neelas got Zephyred. That's just going to be less damage coming in. The Xayah free to do all the damage that she wants to do. And that is going to be that. So after a short delay, it is going to be robivanenob taking the win here in Lobby B. Kurumx still with a strong performance, taking second. But that is how this one will end. 2 games down. And I'm looking forward to seeing